Hey, my beloved Madridistas, welcome back to Madrid. Welcome back to the channel. Okay, let's get caught up on sort of the latest gossip, some of the latest news that's been floating around here. I want to tell you guys a little bit about the NFL match that took place here in Madrid. I actually attended it. It was pretty amazing. They did an amazing job organizing this. I want to tell you guys a little bit about that, the economic repercussions for the club, etc. We'll talk about Rodrigo because, we're getting more rumors that he might leave. There was talk of Man City, now there's talk of Arsenal. We'll talk about Endrick, and it looks like Lyon and Real Madrid are getting very close to an agreement to have Endrick leave on loan during the winter window. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Jude Tuchel sort of situation. There was a bit of a spat when Jude got subbed the other day, but of course that's triggered all the sort of negative hysterical YouTubers once again around here. And then finally we'll talk about Tebas, who is absolutely livid that the NFL thing worked out as well as it did. This is a guy that's hell-bent on hurting Real Madrid in any way he can. And when he sees Real Madrid succeed in any way, he just, loses his mind. So, all right, let's get up to speed on all this stuff. Thanks for joining me. As always, let's get started. Madridistas, welcome back. Okay, just a quick word on the NFL match the other day, the Dolphins against the Commanders, and I attended it. It was really, really well organized. This gives you a glimpse into what the possibilities are with this stadium, where the grass goes underground and you can put a hard top, and it's just. The possibilities are sort of limitless, and this is going to be a great source of revenues for the club. I have to say it was really, really well organized. When we were in the stadium, we were talking about it. It felt, first of all, it felt like everybody in the stadium was American. I don't know how many people flew over for this, but it felt like everybody in the stadium was American. The atmosphere was totally different than when you go watch a Real Madrid match. And we were talking about it in the stadium. We're like, it's amazing. So U.S. sports are... they're great from a sporting point of view, but they're also entertainment. I mean, American sports are, about entertainment. So you got the cheerleaders and everybody getting up constantly to get hot dogs or beer or whatever. It's just such a different vibe, that because the game is sort of very interrupted, you have a lot of musical intervals. So people are up sort of dancing and all this kind of stuff, and everyone's looking at the big screen to see if they're caught on camera. Like, it's just such a festive sort of environment. And we were talking about it. We were saying, the difference when you go to a Real Madrid match is just totally different because everybody in the stadium is just 100% focused on the match and winning the match. And everybody is just intensely focused on every little touch on the ball. If anybody gets up to go get a drink, like people sort of, yell at them, like sit down. It's a totally, totally different vibe. But I think they did a tremendous job organizing this. I mean, the pitch looked... it looked exactly like, any NFL pitch in the U.S. They did a tremendous job in terms of setting that up. Apparently, the economic implications, they say that about 170 million euros were generated in terms of economic activity, and that sort of includes concession stands and merchandising and all that stuff. And apparently, Real Madrid is going to keep around 10 million, so sort of, to rent out the stadium. But I mean, that's a pretty decent chunk of change for, relatively little work. I think at this point, it's important to mention the issue of noise, because that a lot of the neighbors around the Bernabeu were suing Real Madrid because they say that when there are summer concerts and stuff that it's too loud. There's no doubt in my mind that a lot of these people are just trying to get money out of the club. And a lot of these people, I'm 200 yards away. I can sometimes hear the sound on my balcony, which is where you see that picture in the corner of my screen that's actually taken from my balcony. I can sometimes hear a little bit of the sound, but it doesn't, it's nothing that bothers me at all, and it certainly doesn't get inside the living room. So it doesn't bother me. But it does sound like Real Madrid has addressed the issue. They've spent, a lot of money on a kind of soundproofing big chunks of the stadium, and it looks like that issue might be behind us now, and Real Madrid can start sort of, hosting concerts again. I hope that is the case. This is a great source of revenue for the club. I honestly think that if you buy an apartment next to a football stadium and then complain that there's crowds I don't know. It just seems a little counterintuitive to me. I mean, if you buy an apartment near an airport, then you complain that there's too much air traffic. It's a little crazy. I mean, I understand their point of view, but I think it's a little bit, disingenuous. Don't if you want silence, do not buy an apartment next to an 88,000 seater stadium. But anyway, I think the event was a huge success. Everybody in the press is acknowledging that it was a huge success, and I think this can be a great source of revenue for the club going forward. So they're already talking about additional NFL matches in coming seasons. All right, let's talk about the Rodrigo situation really quickly. And the rumors sort of never stop. These international breaks are sort of ripe for people to just kind of make shit up. And anyway, there were a lot of rumors that Man City was interested in Rodrigo. That's been going on for a couple of years. There's now talk that Arsenal are interested and ready to pony up a huge amount of money. People are talking about, sort of 125, 150 million. I don't know how much truth there is to this. Look, it's true that Rodrigo probably isn't delighted these days because he's not playing very much. It's not an impossible thing to think about that Rodrigo would consider leaving. I still think that he's going to stay. I haven't really heard any hard facts. These sound more like rumors to me than anything else. Look, you can make the argument that this squad, if you look at it objectively and you look at the roster, this is a squad that has one forward too many and one defender too few. And that has been the case for the last 2 or 3 years. Would I want to see Rodrigo leave? No. I think he's a wonderful player. He's great on the left. We've seen him do amazing things on the right. He hasn't been playing very well lately, but I still think he's an incredibly talented player that brings a lot. I would not want to see him leave. But the rumors are definitely heating up in that regard. But I think in terms of probability, if I were a guessing man, a betting man, I would probably say the chances are no more than about 20% that he leaves. So hopefully that's just nothing but rumors. Okay, the Endrick situation seems a little bit more real. And the talk is that Olympique Lyon are really after Endrick. They really want to bring him over in the winter window on loan. The idea is that Lyon would pay part of his salary, so they wouldn't pay the totality of Endrick's salary, but they would pay part of it, and then there would be a sort of incentive structure based on performance in terms of how much more they would pay. But it does look like they're getting a bit closer in terms of the details. Now, this is a rumor that I think carries a bit more weight, and this one I'm going to go sort of 50 to sort of 65% probability on this one. I honestly would hate to see him go. Look, I have mixed feelings about this because on the one hand, Endrick needs to play and deserves to play, and he's never going to improve as a player if he's not playing competitively and frequently with some regularity. So on the one hand, I do think that he deserves to play and develop as a player. On the other hand, I would hate to see him leave because I think he's a player that has really interesting qualities. He's sort of explosive, very quick, very, very powerful, has an incredible shot, and he just hasn't been given enough of a chance. And, knowing that we have issues on the right wing and knowing that Endrick is a player that can play that position, I just don't understand why we would want to let him go when he's a player that could help a lot in terms of plugging that glaring hole that we have in our attack, which is on the right. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this. I feel very bad for the kid. I was here when they welcomed him at the Bernabeu. It was a very emotional ceremony. But you fast forward to where we are now, and it's just really heartbreaking because the kid has barely played a single minute, and he deserves more than that. So I have mixed feelings about the Endrick thing. I would never want to sell him or let him go completely. But is there an argument to be made to let him go on loan? There probably is. But again, I think it's a shame. I think it's a player that, again, I wouldn't want to see him leave. And I would like to see him get more minutes here in Madrid. Okay, let's move on to the Jude Tuchel situation. And I don't know what's going on with a lot of the YouTubers here, but man, everybody's looking for problems where there are none, and just the amount of hot air that's being blown around is crazy. So Jude played for England the other night, and he was substituted in the 84th minute. And obviously, he didn't make any sort of crazy gestures, but he was visibly unhappy about being subbed, which I think is perfectly normal. I mean, I've never heard of a player that is happy to be substituted, but he didn't do anything disparaging. I didn't see there wasn't any kind of hand waving. It wasn't like Vini or anything like that. But it was enough for sort of the rumor mills to start. Tuchel in his press conference said that, Jude just has to accept the decisions of the manager. I don't think he meant anything bad by that. I think he stated the obvious. I don't think, look, Jude, I've seen a million documentaries on this guy and I've seen a million interviews. I think Jude is probably one of the most polite, kind of, mild-mannered players out there. I've never seen him say anything out of place. He's always really for the team, sacrifices, works his ass off when he plays. He's very much into supporting his colleagues. I know he gets along with everybody. I don't understand why all people are sort of digging up dirt and saying that, now Jude has an attitude problem and all this other kind of stuff. And I just don't believe it. Again, I'm kind of referring back to my previous video. I don't believe a lot of this stuff. I think Jude is a great player with a great attitude. And, is he pissed off from time to time? Sure. At refs, at the manager, at his teammates. All of this is perfectly normal. But to suggest that somehow Jude has an attitude problem, I think it's just really looking for problems where there are none. As we say in Spanish, you're looking for the fifth leg on the cat. Okay, you're just looking for something that isn't there. And anyway, but it's a lot of hot air. And again, when we have these international breaks, people just don't know what to talk about, so they kind of make things up. I don't think it's a big deal at all. Okay, we got to talk about Tebas because it's amazing when anything goes Real Madrid's way. You can just see how much this man suffers. Okay, this is a guy that will do absolutely anything to harm Real Madrid. You recall at the beginning of the season, we didn't have the full 3 weeks to prepare in the preseason because of the Club World Cup and all that. And Real Madrid and Osasuna wanted to play the match a few days later. Osasuna agreed. But of course, Tebas said no. He said, no, you're adulterating the competition if you do that. Basically, playing the same match a few days later is somehow adulterating the competition. But he was perfectly happy to let Barça play a game in Miami in a state. It was supposed to be an away game to Villarreal, but to play in Miami at a stadium that'll be 100% Barça supporters, and that is not adulterating the competition. So just, the criteria that this guy uses to make his decisions is ridiculous. But he came out sort of saying in an interview that Real Madrid is really harming La Liga. Harming La Liga. How is Real Madrid harming La Liga? By sponsoring an NFL match on its turf. Look, the Bernabeu belongs to us, and we can use it as we wish. And La Liga has no right to tell us what to do and what not to do with our property. But this is the kind of thing that Tebas wants to have complete and total control over La Liga. He wants total control over our image rights, our TV rights, even our merchandising and the commercial side of the business. He's been trying to encroach on Real Madrid's operations and to take control of the economics of the club, which is completely wrong. Okay, Real Madrid does not belong to Tebas. Real Madrid does not belong to La Liga. Real Madrid belongs to the socios for the time being, and with the new model upcoming, it'll be open to outside investors as well. But Real Madrid is its own entity, and we own our assets, and we have a right to exploit those assets as we see fit, as long as it doesn't harm anyone else. And hosting sporting events and concerts does not harm La Liga in any way. But of course, Tebas had to come out and criticize Real Madrid because he just cannot stand to see anything positive happen to this club. But anyway, listen, this is a very short video. I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts on kind of the latest gossip here. Otherwise, the international break is still on. I despise these breaks. I can't wait till the guys come back to Madrid and we get started again. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section with all this kind of gossip going around. Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for joining me. As always, love you guys. And as always and forever, a la Madrid.